Hello, hello. Excuse me, can I ask y'all in the back to please find a seat? Come on up, we don't bite. Come on up I see a couple empty rows in the front. Y'all were MBAs, let's take the front row. All right, thank you. I'm Natalie Barnard. It's a really big privilege to be up here and to introduce some of our speakers, all of our speakers today, who I fangirl over. I'm the chair, of the MBA Advisory Board. So we had a meeting that wrapped this morning. If anyone's interested in getting involved, please let me know. I'm around or find me. Natalie Barnard, happy to talk to you about it. And I live here in Austin. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Business Development at Amherst, a real estate private equity firm here. It is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Dean Lillian Mills. She is the Dean of McCombs, the McCombs School of Business at the University of Texas at Austin. She also holds the Folger Leadership Chair and the O'Hara Endowed Chair in Business. Dean Mills has won multiple college and national awards for her research in corporate tax compliance and policy, and her teaching of tax students at the undergraduate, graduate, and PhD levels. Her favorite part of being dean is hearing the stories of alumni for whom our Texas McCombs education embodies our motto, "What starts here changes the world." Please welcome Dean Mills.
Thank you, Natalie, for what's such a warm introduction and for your leadership as the chair of our MBA Advisory Board this year. Welcome to Homecoming, and I would like to know by applause, who's a BBA alum in the room? Woo! How about specialty masters, one-year masters? Anybody? Okay, we need to get more of them back to campus. It's been fairly new, and then MBA alums. And just for kicks, do I have any PhD alums in the room today? Because at any given time, we have about 150 PhD students, and they go off and teach in the world. And so the McCombs values and thought leadership spreads all over. So welcome to Homecoming 2024. I'm so excited to have some of my favorite colleagues speaking today. Sandy Leeds, Professor of Instruction in Finance, Melly Price, Director of the John Brumley Texas Venture Labs, as well as the MS in Technology Commercialization. She'll be interviewing John Brumley, founder, president, and CEO of Bounty Investments. Then Professor Rex Dew from the Department of Marketing will speak. Ellen Bartakowiak, the Assistant Director for Alumni Career Management. All of you can talk to a career coach if you want to. And then to close the afternoon, I get to interview speaker alumnus Blake Putra of Beatbox Beverage Company. So I'm so pleased you're here. President Hartzell thinks about our strategy at UT in terms of people and place and the pursuits of research, education, and experiences. One of the things that's new in the people space is we now have a UT Speakers Bureau driven by Texas Executive Education. So if you have a group that wants an expert like a Sandy Leeds or a Rex Dew, we now have a mechanism where we can be a broker to help see if the colleague wants to speak at whatever arrangement your organization can provide. And I want to make a call out, a shout out to all of you to be part of McCombs Connect. This QR code is working. You can open your phones right now and join our social media platform for alumni engagement. We have 5,800 users and 200 active mentors on the platform. Some of the specialty groups are more active than others. There's a consulting group, an investment banking group, a New York alumni group. So you can use this platform. You can offer to mentor a younger alum or a current student, and one of the ways you can log in is through LinkedIn. That way, as you move from one management job to another C-suite job, if your LinkedIn profile is linked, we will always know where to find you. So please join. Place, there is no city in the world where I would rather be the dean of an exceptional business school than Austin, Texas. Here in Austin, we have these tailwinds of double-digit growth, not just in Austin, but in DFW and Houston and San Antonio, where companies and jobs and, frankly, some wealth that enjoys our 0% income tax rate is flooding in here. And that makes it a vibrant city to educate students and to engage all of those professionals in our curriculum. And so our aspirations are getting bigger. One of those, the most concrete, is going to be right across the street. You have seen, as of today, the Dobie parking garage has hit the ground. They are still scraping away some rubble, and then they will start digging the hole. Our plans for the new Mulva Hall are contingent, temporary, not temporary, contingent and just in advance of the proposal to the November Regents meeting. So we need their endorsement and approval to be able to issue the public bonds that would pay for half of that space. The McCombs School was asked to put in $50 million from our, the money under our mattress, the savings account that we have been squirreling away for about 20 years. And we're raising $150 million from alums like you. There have been more than 50 alums who contributed more than $1 million to the project. But we're at the point of saying, I want everyone to contribute. Normally, our annual giving participation rate is about 4 to 5%. Can you guess what year it bumped up to 10%? 2006. Can you tell me why? National championship. So if there's any fall where there's a dual mandate, we're building a building, 17 beautiful stories across the way, and high hopes for a national championship, this would be a year at any amount to donate something to the McCombs School, and you can tag it off to the Mulva Hall. We're not selling bricks. That's too much work for my staff. But think of yourself as buying a brick. You wouldn't want us to open the building for our second century and have not been part of that. In pursuits, research is booming. Our assistant professor, Kathleen Lee, received a very prestigious dissertation award. Finance professor Laura Starks will be honored at the Distinguished Alumni Awards by the Texas X's. Finance professor Sheridan Tittman has had his research cited by 100,000 other research papers. And Steve Katchelmeyer in accounting is about to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award. We also care a lot about teaching. Poets and Quants has recognized Rowena Crabb as one of the top 50 undergrad professors, and Andrew Brodsky was in the top 40 under the age of 40 in MBA. We're also infusing AI in all of our classes. Our faculty love to learn new things. We don't forbid new tools, we embrace new tools, and so we're adapting our curriculum. I use, the one I'm using now is Copilot. I experimented with Claude. I use AI every day. So we care about teaching excellence and being on the front. And related to experiences, I'm very excited to announce a new initiative, Texas Entrepreneurship, so the McCombs School can be the front porch for everything across campus related to entrepreneurship. And it includes our Harkey Institute, where the undergrad minor is, the Kendra Scott Women's Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute, the John Brumley Texas Venture Labs, the Herb Kelleher Center, and newly added to the McCombs portfolio, Blackstone Launchpad. President Hartzell had announced 2024 as the year of AI. We're going to continue that, obviously, for the next century. He's also said, get thinking about 2025 as a year of the energy and the environment. Here in McCombs, we're part of a cross-campus partnership, the KBH Energy Center, and I expect it will be stepping forward because here in Texas, not only are we an oil and gas powerhouse in the Permian Basin and elsewhere in Texas, but we have more kilowatt hours of wind and solar than any other state in the US. That's more than most countries in the world. So when you think about all sources of energy for the full world, Texas is the center of thought leadership as well as providing energy. So stay tuned for that. In closing, I embrace President Hartzell's ambition to be the world's highest impact public research university, and you're all part of that. So I invite you this weekend to reflect back on your hopes and ambitions and the optimism you felt as a young student here at Texas McCombs. And as you meet our students, I hope you will see it like a mirror image. The current crop of students, smart, engaged, personable, warm, collegial. I think of it as we're competitive about our own efforts and we're collaborative with the people around us. And that is a brand that employers cannot get enough of. So in a world where sometimes the economy trembles a little, the outlook for our students is exceptional, and that's in large part due to your successes paving the way for them. So Natalie, I'll hand it back to you and say hook 'em, and I'll be back later in the afternoon. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you, Sandy. I'm really excited to introduce our next speaker, Melly Price. I've seen her on this stage before. She is the Executive Director for Texas Entrepreneurship, which is an appointment by the president of the university. She teaches graduate and doctoral students the academic fundamentals of entrepreneurship and practical skills required to advance business opportunities from conception to launch. She also brings her venture capital and business leadership expertise to McCombs as the Executive Director of the Master of Science in Technology Commercialization Program. As founder and CEO of Frontgate Solutions and Frontgate Tickets, Melly interrupted the ticketing industry when her innovative software platform, grown from a $15,000 bootstrapped investment to over $70 million in revenue, was acquired by Live Nation. She also founded Source Spring Fund, a boutique consultancy managing a growing portfolio of angel investments and other entrepreneurial activity. And moreover, she co-founded and serves as a lead mentor, managing director, and formal general partner of Capital Factory here in Austin, which has invested over $30 million in Texas startups. Melly earned an MS in technology commercialization with honors from Texas McCombs and a BS in biology from UT Austin's College of Natural Sciences. John Brumley is also joining us, and he has a distinguished career in the energy business. After a BBA from the University of Texas at Austin in 1961 and an MBA from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, he has served in leadership positions at a number of successful oil and gas companies. Throughout his tenure in the energy sector, He has listed 8 oil and gas companies publicly, of which he founded 6 on the New York Stock Exchange. He is currently chairman and CEO of Bounty Minerals, and Mr. Brumley's most recent accomplishments include a Distinguished Alumnus Award from the University of Texas at Austin, induction into the Petroleum Hall of Fame, and with his son, recognition as Forbes Magazine's 2005 Entrepreneur of the Year. Please welcome Melly Price and John Brumley for a fireside chat as we commemorate the 40th anniversary of the John Brumley Texas Venture Labs.
Good afternoon. It's a beautiful Friday. Well, good afternoon. I'm delighted to get to share the stage with a wonderful philanthropist, businessman, entrepreneur, and friend, John Brumley. John and his wife, Rebecca Brumley, have been instrumental in funding a lot of our entrepreneurial initiatives on campus, including Texas Venture Labs, which I've had the honor of being the executive director of that program for the last 4 years. And we've built some really great programs. At this point, we've served over about 1,500 graduate students who are entrepreneurial. We've intersected with 300 plus companies in the startup community. We've granted about $1.5 million in funds for our Texas Venture Labs investment competition. And we've had a few dozen fellows now with our new fellows program, all thanks to the generosity of the Brumleys. And today's theme for our conversation is really an extension on the work that we do now, and it's about opening doors. How many of you in here can attribute your career to somebody that gave you your first shot? Right? We all need that first shot. And at John Brumley Texas Venture Labs, that's what our goal is. Not everyone's a founder. Some people want to work with early stage companies, but we try to connect people to those door opening moments in their life. And so the theme today will be about really how mentorship and philanthropy can, be a part of that story. And John here has had, I'll call it an illustrious career. Yeah, he's had an illustrious career, but has shared many stories with me over the time of our friendship that I wanted to share more broadly. So winding it back to the early days, who helped you open your first door?
Oh,
Or one of your first doors?
a lot of people. I don't want. That's my wife. Why don't you stand up first? Don't you want to stand up?
Do you want me to stand up?
Huh?
Becky Brumley, Rebecca.
Yeah, of all the people, I mean, it's been a lot, but I'll tell you a little funny story that goes with it. I went to University of Texas and graduated, didn't have a job, and at that time, that was 1961, there weren't a lot of jobs. And so my brother, who was selling typewriters door to door, was really upset with his job, and he said, "John, get a master's degree. You got to do something else." And so this was like August, I guess July, for the September, when the next go-around was. And so I asked another friend of mine who was a Harvard graduate for the law degree just a few days before. And he had gone to Harvard all along. And I asked him, what school should I go to? And he said, "Oh, yeah, you need to go to Harvard or Yale, Pennsylvania." So I mailed an application in to 4 schools. all those schools. And, you know, I didn't hear from anybody, but, you know, right at the end of August, the phone rings, and this lady's from the University of Pennsylvania. She said, you know, we've had, because of the Cuban crisis, we've had some people drop out. And we have some openings. And so I could, you know, she said, get in and go to one of those. But she said, you know, you only send in your grades for your junior and senior year. You didn't send in for your freshman and sophomore year. And why not? And I said, well, if I would have sent those in, you and I wouldn't be talking right now. And she laughed, just like y'all laughed. And she screamed out, you're in, you're in. She said, you got to take a test, an admissions test, but we want you, you know, to go to Wharton. So, with me and my then wife, you know, a few days before school started, drove up to Philadelphia. Went into, you know, I knew we didn't have any money. I didn't tell you that, but I had about $500 in my billfold. And other than that, I had no money. And so we went and registered, and I was in a line to register. Then I get my turn, and the lady said, that'll be $3,000. And I said, ma'am, what'd you say? She said, that will be $3,000. And I said, ma'am, I don't have $3,000. And she said, what do you mean you don't have $3,000? She said, you know, you've been enrolled. I mean, you're ready to, here, why don't you have the fee? And I said, well, I thought it would be like $50. And she said, what? She said, you think this is a public school? And I said, yes, ma'am, it's the University of Pennsylvania, and I went to the University of Texas. And she said, and this is a true story. She said, well, no, and she got very irritated. Well, there's other students in line behind me, and they start laughing. So I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. And she said, well, we'll try to get you a loan of $3,000, but we won't be able to do that now. And a fellow came over and talked to me and said he'd talk to me the next day. And so, you know, we go to a motel or a hotel that is a god-awful hotel you've ever seen. And then I go out on the sidewalk and phone my father, a pay phone, you know. That's why I was on the sidewalk. They didn't have these phones back then. And so I phoned my father and said, you know, here's what's going on. He said, well, John, I don't have money to do that. And I said, I know, but I just wanted to tell you about it. And he said, well, why don't you phone Mr. Cox? And Mr. Cox was the president of Austin National Bank. And I had been over at his house quite a bit. He had a daughter my age. And he said, I saw Mr. Cox today. And he said, you know, how's John doing and what's he going to do? And he said, well, he's going to Wharton. He said he was really excited. So I phoned Mr. Cox and I tell him the story. He said, oh, don't worry about that. He said, you go back over there and you just sign a check on us and we'll pay for both semesters. I mean, both years, 4 semesters. And you get a job, pay us back. And so I can't leave out Mr. Cox. You know, when you ask me who opens the door.
I'm hearing a few
boy, that
people
was a
in this
door
story.
open. I tell you, when I went back, in those days it was pre-computer. And so checks were just blank. Everything was blank on the check. And you wrote on there, Austin National Bank. You wrote that on yourself and put the amount of money and signed it. So then, you know, I could go to school and I went in, and then I had all kinds of other problems that I won't get into with you, but I was in my first class, and the guy came in and said, "Is there Mr. Brumley in this class?" And the dean wants to see you, so I got up out of class when the dean got. And he was all mad about that and other things, and he said, you come here, you don't have any money. You made the lowest grade of anybody to ever be accepted by Wharton School of Finance, the very lowest grade. And he said, what we hope you do is take your money and go home. Well, if you're you're not a kid, but you're not much older than a kid. And I would give you, I'm going to go ahead and tell you why. The reason all this happened was because when we went to look for a place to live, the landlord was a black man. And so, and it was a really very dumpy kind of place we were going to be in. But they needed those kind of places, for people that don't have any money, where they would be. It was just I forget what they call them, but there's just a one
Student
straight
housing.
back house.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, or not a house, but apartment kind of thing. So my wife said, if my dad finds out that we're staying at home with, at that time it was Negro people, we're going to really have a problem. And so I said, well, I'll handle that. So we would go out in the hall with this guy. His name was Isidore Maximilian Martin. And Mr. Martin, I told him, I said, we got a problem. My wife's from East Texas. It's a little different. She's not prejudiced, and I'm not prejudiced, but her father's prejudiced. And so I need to know if there would be Negro people living here. And he said, well, only students. And so I said, fine, that's good, we're in, And I was kind of pleased with that. And then the next day I go to school, and the dean calls me in, and I've already told you how that went. And so I told when the dean told me that, I said, well, give me 24 hours, and I'll decide whether I'm going to stay or not. And so I go to Mr. Martin's house. He had told me that he had lived a few blocks away. He lived in a row house. The row house we were in was really bad. His was a lot nicer. So we go in, I ring the doorbell, and he comes out. And I said, Mr. Martin, I really need to talk to you. And he said, well, I'll get us some water, and you go sit on the curb. Well, you don't sit on the curb much in Philadelphia. There's a lot of traffic going by, and we're sitting there on the curb and a little bit uncomfortable. And I said, Mr. Martin, I just want you to know one thing. I'm really sorry I hurt your feelings. But I also want you to know I didn't have much time to figure out what I was going to say to you. And I was trying to be as honest as I could be and tell you that we weren't prejudiced, and that I'm really sorry that this happened. And he then got very upset with himself. And he said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, you kidding me? I said, I'm out of here. I'm getting in my car. I'm going tomorrow. I'm leaving. And he said, oh, you can't do that. You've got to stay. If you leave, it'll break my heart. So he was probably 50 years old. And so he said, John, you go to school. Go to school. Don't go to the dean's office. You go to school like nothing ever happened. You hear me? So I said, fine. I went to school. Nothing was ever said about it. Every once in a while, I'd see two professors walking along together, and they would go like that and laugh. So I'm sure the word was out what all this happened. But they got me a good job while I was in school. I worked hard every day, every afternoon. I studied in the mornings and studied in the evening. But what was really interesting at the end, they give you two tests at the end. They give you a test of a written test and an oral test. And I made the highest grade. And so, those tests were real broad tests. But some people just test horrible, I think. And I think I'm one of those people. My daughter thinks I'm dyslexic, and I don't know what that has to do with it, but anyway, she believes it.
The dean let you off the hook, even though he asked you to pack your bags and get out.
Yeah.
You ended up scoring the highest on the test.
Let's say it again.
The dean let you off the hook instead of telling you to go back.
Well, yeah, I think a guy phoned him. Martin was on the board of trustees, and about 20 years later, after I'd made some money and living in Fort Worth, and they came to give some money toward. And I asked the guy, I said, do you know where does Isidore Maximum Martin? He said, well, he's still on our board. Said,
So the guy that was your landlord is on the board of trustees for the university.
And so he said, am I talking too fast?
No, this story is getting fascinating.
Okay. So,
You piss off the guy who's on the board of trustees.
And so
make amends with him.
When they had the next meeting, Mr. Martin tells them, I'm too old to be doing this. John Brumley is taking my place. And I know y'all have never heard of John Brumley, but he's taking my place. I want no conversation about it. As soon as I shut up, that's the end of it.
So the guy you offended on your first day at the Wharton School of Business is the man who put you on the board of trustees for the Wharton School of Business.
That's correct.
All right, that's a door opening moment.
Well, there's only one problem. I had just decided that I would be on the State Board of Education for 4 years. And so I really couldn't afford to go up there and do that. I went twice. But I told Mr. Martin that in the beginning, and he said, that's okay. But he said, this is for me, this isn't for you. And then I was chairman of the State Board of Education for 4 years. Becky was vice chairman. That's how we met. So, I don't know if you think, how you get really lucky out of something bad. That all came out of not having any money. After I was in the Army for 6 months in active duty, and then you went 6 years reserve. Everybody had to be in. I started paying them back, and they gave me some little tickets, that every month you fill out the ticket and gave them money. It made it easier. But when you owe $12,000, and they're taking their piece of it every month, it really is a lot of money. But on the other hand, it was something that I never looked at as being cumbersome, because it was just something that I owed and need to pay. I then, I got a real good job, and my wife wanted to buy a house in Philadelphia, and I said, no, I'm not going to do that. we're going back to Texas. We came back, and now to answer your question kind of direct about who have to,
Right.
yeah.
You can take the boy out of Texas, but you can't take the Texas out of the
I
boy.
guess that's right. But I was with, I went to work, or went to see Southern Royalty Company, oil and gas company. I didn't know anything about oil and gas. And a guy named Mr. Weaver was the chairman of the board. And so we talked, and he liked me, and I liked him. He's quite a bit older. And so we got kind of down toward the end, and he said, well, how much money do you make now? And I said, I make $15,000 a year. And he said, well, how much? No, he said, I said $15,000 a year. And he said, I'll give you 12. And so I said, well, will you pay for a move down here? He said, no, that's your responsibility. It's not mine. And so I said, okay, so the answer's still no, I'll take the job. So I went to work for $12,000 a year. I show up. I don't have any title.
You're newly out of work.
Little bitty room that they give me some geology book, textbook, geology book,
Sounds like a
book
classic
on
startup.
operations and stuff. But all I was to do was to read. But the job that I had before, it was an actuarial company, and I really liked it. And I had learned just kind of on the side how to model. And Southland was a disaster in their operation. Just tons of dry holes. And so I started modeling. The guys that worked there, there were officers there, they wanted to do better. They knew they weren't doing all that well, in fact, poorly. And so somebody came in with totally different ideas, no title, making $15,000 or $12,000. So that turned out really to be very nice. As I was going up, I wasn't making anybody jealous, and that was important. And things were going pretty good, started going better. And Boone Pickens tendered for Southland. He had formed Mesa. And so that was a really smart thing for him to do because Mesa was so poor. Southland was doing such a poor job that if he could get hold of it, because we had great properties that we'd inherited, he could make a lot of money, and he knew it. And so he
Kind of a hostile takeover. He was trying to do a hostile takeover.
So he did it on. He tendered on Christmas Eve day, just so it would be all screwed up, and you'd be doing something else, and all of a sudden somebody's tendering, ruin your Christmas. So Monday, or the day after Christmas, Mr. Weaver said, John, you've got a master's degree. You be in charge of fighting this tender. And so I went up to New York the next day. And
John, how old were you at that point in your life?
now what?
How old were you at that point in your life?
How old?
Yeah, 20s? Late 20s?
27.
27 years old, master's degree from Wharton, going after Boone Pickens, who's trying to hostile take over your company?
But it's really weird. I think it's really weird. It's hard to believe, really. I guess what I'm telling you is, among other things, a lot of people helped me, but for some reason I had a lot of drive. And so when I went to New York, I didn't have an appointment with the president of Goldman Sachs. It was before 9/11. And so I walk in to their building, and you look them over, kind of like your doctor's office, and you're on the 8th floor, and and you take the elevator on up, walk in the president's office, and
Of Goldman Sachs.
His secretary is sitting there. I introduced myself and said I'd like to talk. I've forgotten his name. And so she said, well, I don't know that he'll see you without an appointment. I said, well, I think he will, because he will have read about this tender offer. And about this time, he comes in and he walks by and says, hi, nice guy. And she gets up and goes in his office with him, and then she comes back out and says, well, he'll see you. And so I go in and talk to him, and he said, well, we would much rather represent Pickens than represent Southam. And I said, well, wait a minute. I want you to know that we have a man named Mr. Weaver that has lived in Corpus, and he's kind of inherited this deal, and he's been chairman, but he's let it slip, and he's really changing the whole thing. And I think that we're going to make a really good company out of it. And he said, well, there's a lawyer named Joe Flom that's a very young lawyer, but he's really the very best in fighting these kind of things. And he was with a firm called Skadden Arps. And he said, if you can convince Joe Flom to take this home, then Goldman Sachs will do it. And so I said, okay. And so he had made an appointment already, I think. So I go over and talk to Joe Flom. And golly, we had the best time talking. We were just, it was a neat guy, young guy, very, very good lawyer. So he says he'll take it. And so then I go back to Goldman. And so he says, well, there's going to be another, what's his name, Becky?
Bob Rubin.
What?
Bob Rubin.
Yeah, so I can't remember Bob Rubin's name for the life of me. I don't know why. And so he says, we'll get to the guy that's going to be working on this deal from Goldman. It's Bob Rubin. And Bob Rubin was later president of Goldman for years, plus that he was treasurer of the United States government for years after he retired from Goldman. Bob Rubin is you can't imagine Bob Rubin being on your team. Of course, at the time, he had never done anything either. So, we're the same age. And I guess they just were having a little fun with all this. And so now we've got Bob Rubin, Joe Flom, and John Brumley. And nobody had ever heard of any of us except Flom. And we kicked Boone Pickens' butt twice. To tell you, we were so
That's
good.
the bad news bears.
I can't tell you how hard I worked. I'd get up in the morning. I was still making $12,000 a year and didn't have a title. And I would shave and do my fists like this. We're going to win. We're going to win. And sure enough, we won. And we stayed friends. And then about 2 weeks later, Boone Pickens phones, and he wants me to meet him at the airport, and I do. And he said, John, I'm going to make you executive vice president of Mesa, pay you $45,000 a year and give you all these stock options. And I want you to come to work for me. And he said, I'm in Amarillo. And I know people don't want to go to Amarillo. So I said, oh, don't worry about that. I was born in Pampa. We're all panhandle people in my family. And so then I went, but I said I won't take that job until I talk to Mr. Weaver. And so I went back and told Mr. Weaver. And he matched it all. He said, I'll match it, And so I went to work there, which was really a whole lot luckier because it let me be in a position where I could make a lot of changes without having to mess with Boone Pickens. But I really like Boone. I don't mean that ugly. But it was a great opportunity for me. So I guess I'll have to say, you know, Gil Weaver gave me the opportunity to shine, and I took it and did the best with it, and Southland turned out to be just a phenomenal company. We quit drilling all those wildcat wells, and we started buying fields, primarily water flood, and it really worked, and we made a lot of money, and we were all happy. It was bought in an unfriendly tender by the railroad, Northern, and you can't fight them. You can't fight a railroad. But
I really
when they
hear.
bought us, I mean, oil was selling when we made the deal. Oil was selling for about $28 a barrel. That was in October. In December, when the deal closed, oil was like 12.
Wow.
And so you're about lucky. We were extremely lucky. They were extremely unlucky. But they did a bad job of looking at the whole thing anyway. There was a guy there that was really a close friend that was kind of in charge of their tender, and after it was over, you know, he phoned me and said, "I understand you're all upset about this." I said, "Well, I worked there for 20 years. What do you expect?" And he said, "Well, you needed replanting." Well, I just replanted you. So, okay. Well, then all that thing went to hell on his side. So I phoned him back. I said, "Yeah, you just needed replanting," and he hung up the phone.
You know, I heard a theme in both of those stories about opening doors. You know, you were a young person. You had actions that were high integrity. You made an amends to a man that you potentially offended, not knowing you offended him. You went to the dean. You asked for time to take care of things. You did what you said you would do. You graduated from Wharton. You put in the hard work. You get out. You get this opportunity at Southland, and you just added value wherever you could. And that kind of action was rewarded. And I know for myself, it's easy to just assume that's how people are, but not every young person is that way. And so, you know, recognizing those attributes in people and really going out of your way to do, you know, to pay the $3,000 bill for college because it means that person's going to have a shot, or to give them the opportunity to go fight Boone Pickens when you're 27 years old. I mean, you turned into executive vice president, one of the most successful companies in the history of that business. You've gone on to take 6 companies public in the oil and gas business, working on your 7th at 80.
Are you saying 10 companies?
I said 6.
Oh, good.
Working on your 7th at 85 years old, go to the office every single day, and here we are celebrating you and Becky for your generosity, where you are now the door opener. And so I want to tell a story about, at what point did you realize I can do the same for others? What point in your life did you say, all right, I can go do this. I can help change the trajectory of somebody's life?
I say again.
At what point in your life did you realize it's now your responsibility to change the trajectory of somebody else's life? Because you started giving back, you started hiring women in your business.
You know, I don't know when Becky and I really started doing that. I think I've always been a very thankful person. I've always felt very sorry for people that didn't have an opportunity. But you know, I mean, I always, you know, I can remember wrestling with Mexican children in the neighborhood. I remember playing with black children. And I just feel like those people that I played with then, you know, they ought to have the same opportunity that I have. I learned at an early age that we're not any different. You know, when I was made chairman of the State Board of Education, the very first phone call I got was a Hispanic guy, and he's somebody that I'd wrestled with. And all he said was, "John, is this you I'm reading about?" You know, but I think everybody deserves a good opportunity, and I think we just have to make that for them. And I know Becky feels the same way. I don't think there was a turning point. I think that was always in me. I know there was a kid in my elementary school who didn't have any socks, and he was this was a sixth, maybe he was in there in the sixth grade when you didn't have the socks, and gave him some socks. But about the seventh or eighth grade, he was very strong, and he hadn't had the opportunity that I had. And so he and I got up a deal together that we would sell soda water at the University of Texas football game. Well, the soda water at the game, you bought a bucket, and it had ice in it, and it had Dr. Pepper or something in it. But I want you to know it's heavy as hell. And so most young guys like me couldn't get more from here to that wall everybody
bucket?
was coming to them, and they weren't selling much because there were so many people selling. But my buddy was real strong, so he could carry them in two hands, you know. And so we could go all the way on the other side. And so I would go over there. I'd carry one, he'd carry two, and we'd get over there and sell them. And then as we roll down, then he'd go back and get another bucket. So we made 5 times as much money as anybody else did.
Know where your audience is.
But you know, the sad part of that story was, and I liked him a whole lot, but he turned out really bad. And he turned out to be one of these guys that they call the Austin Mafia. And he was killed, I think. And God, this is the worst part of me.
This is the world's sweetest man.
Somebody sent me the book, and I read it. And I have never forgiven myself for letting him float away from me, because I know down here he was as good as I was.
Yeah.
And so it's just, I mean, I'm so sorry, but I'm 85 years old.
You knew he had the spirit.
I think that I know as a young fellow, he was really good, and he turned out to be really bad. And I don't know what happened in between. But he could have been good all the way through if people like me would have recognized that you got to help, you got to keep helping. And so, you know, Becky and I, Becky's got her own deal that she works on, giving away books to poor children. And she's given away in the hardback books in the city of Fort Worth almost 1 million books.
1 million books.
Almost. I mean, it's, she works every day. And you know, I really think that's what we should do. I think, you know, for our country to be great, you know, I'm a kind of guy that I think it's absolutely ridiculous the way we've done women in the United States. And so I have a company now that all the officers are women. But I didn't start out wanting to do that. It's just they built themselves up, and some of them have worked for me. Some of them's mother worked for me for 30 years. The mother did, and now the daughter's working for me, and she's chairman of our board, and not chairman of the board, she's president of the company, and she's simply fabulous. And I will tell you what I think. And I've been guilty of this. Like if you have a job you're going to do, and somebody else is going to get the job, and you look at your people, well, you look for a man. I don't know why, you just did. It was stupid. And when I realized, you know, so the first opportunity was going to go to a man. Say it's going to be an accounting department chair, and you look for a man for some reason, and that was stupid. And so now I don't do that, and I've got these great, smart women. They can negotiate. They're tough. They're very smart. They're very happy. You know, it's a little bit different because they have children. They've got to work around that. I mean, that's a problem that they've got. But if they're willing to do it, then that's what they need to do, and that's what's happening in our group. But I think that is so true, and I think that if we would recognize that as a country, then just think of how many more people we would have that could do a lot of exciting things. Yeah. I mean, and that would do a lot of exciting things. And so, you know, I suppose I'm spending my life now trying to figure out how to help other people and do that. I'm a little frustrated personally right now because I hadn't figured out a new thing that I want to do.
I love that you're still working on it at 85 years old.
Yeah.
You're just still doing it.
I beat myself up. You know, I want to do one other thing. And I don't, you know, I'm not talking about a business deal, but I'm talking about doing something for people. You know, I love, just look at what we're doing, you know, for you. And, you know, we were with all those students last night, and they are so good. I mean, they want to really perform well. They want to do well. They're good people. Y'all have chosen real good people for that. We met all morning.
We had dinner with our 10 Texas Venture Labs startups fellows who were funded by the Brumleys, and they really are truly exceptional young people. And you're,
I think that, and so we can do that. But that's your deal. We're just giving you money.
that's all.
I want something that's my deal. I want something that's my deal. And I haven't found it. I thought I had it.
I've got a little money I can give you, but I said I'll give you a little bit of money for your deal.
Well, you know, I don't know. And Becky's the same way. And so it makes it really nice that we're both alike. We you know, I don't give away any money without talking to her, and she doesn't give away. She's really funny about this deal with her. She asked me after we got married, or we were talking after we got married, and we moved to the country. Becky and I had an interesting deal. We said, okay, our marriages hadn't worked. Why? And what could we do different to make it work? And it was things like, well, we don't want to be tied up in being social, so we won't join a country club. We won't watch TV. We'll read more. And so, anything else I'm missing?
We moved to the country and
What'd you say?
You moved to the country,
Well, we moved to the country. That way we couldn't be social because it was just.
and you rode your bicycles, and you took walks.
We bicycled all over Europe. And so we changed our behavior really. And it was really the right thing to do, I think, addressing the problem and then changing. But she was out in the country, and I'm commuting to Fort Worth, and so there was a lot of times we weren't seeing each other, and she was getting a little bored, So I said, well, Becky, I don't know why. What do you want to do when you get old? What's going to be driving you? And she said, well, I want to be a little old lady standing in the country standing on the corner of a poor neighborhood, and I want to be giving away books to parents that will read to their children. That's what I want to do. And so I just looked at Becky and said, well, get after it. And she did.
She did?
How
many
got
years
after
now,
it. Yeah,
She said 23 years, almost 1 million books given to families in Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, she's she's fantastic. She's put together a little company. She has one lady that works with her, the two of them, but they've got ties all around town, to different churches, to all kinds of people that they can talk to that love them because they're giving these books away. Like if you were going to take your baby for a well-baby visit to, the doctor in Fort Worth, Texas.
You get a visit and a book.
Yeah, that's right. The doctor reaches up and hands a book to the mom and says, you need to be reading to your baby.
Talk about changing
And the
outcomes.
doctors absolutely love it because they don't have to do anything but phone us when they're out of book. I mean, they don't have to say, well, how many books they've given away or haven't given away or all that kind of stuff. It's free from, any kind of stuff, which doctors are, I guess, filled up with, having to do things like that.
Having to be doctors.
Yeah, but.
John, do you mind if I invite Becky to join us on stage, and Dean Mills, I'd like to invite you to join us because we are at time and there's something I want to share. So y'all come on up. You stay there.
This looks planned to me, does it to y'all?
So I love that we ended on the story of Becky and...
Huh?
Do I get to sit in his lap?
I love that we ended on that story because it's a story. My question was, at what point did you realize you could open doors? And the time I've gotten to work with you, you've opened so many doors for so many students through your initial gift to the John Brumley Texas Venture Labs back in 2012. We just received an additional $2 million gift from the Brumley family in support of Texas entrepreneurship. As you may have heard last week at the State of the University address, President Hartzell announced a joint initiative with McCombs for Texas entrepreneurship to take the great work we're doing here and spread it across campus and impact even more lives. They gave an unrestricted gift, which catalyzes this and allows us to move quickly towards our mission of becoming the #1 public university to do that. And this beautiful gift,
Wow.
it's a token of our appreciation for you, for your generosity, not only at McCombs, but also at Annette Strauss Institute, the work you do in Fort Worth. You all are changing lives, and we are lucky to have you in our orbit. I love you so much.
We're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have you.
We are lucky to have opportunities to open doors with you.
Thank you. You want to go?
Oh, I can use this
She went to Baylor.
graduate school here.
Thank you all for listening. Trust me, if you get the opportunity to sit with John and Becky and hear stories, wow, they are an extraordinary example of good humans doing great work in the world. So thank you again, and I believe we're just about 5 minutes behind schedule, so we'll transition off. Dean Mills, thank you for joining us. Thank you for your leadership.
Yes,
Wow. You're the best.
you're the best. You're the luckiest.
So appreciate everyone taking a seat. Thank you. It's time for our next speaker. Rex Dew is a professor in the Department of Marketing at the McCombs School. He teaches a variety of courses, including marketing analytics, marketing management, marketing research, customer relationship management, and database marketing. Today, he will give a presentation entitled, "You Are What You Search." Please welcome Professor Dew.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Natalie, for the kind introduction. My name is Rex Dew. I'm a marketing professor, and today I'm going to share with you a topic that's near and dear to my heart. That is how you can extract market insights from what people search online. The core idea is that what we search tell a lot about what we're interested in, what we're concerned about. So I've been doing research, teaching, consulting on this topic for the last 15 years. So hopefully today I can share with you some of the key lessons that I have learned through this process. Before I do that, before I talk about search data, I want to talk about basketball for a few minutes. And I promise there will be a connection between basketball and search data. And take a look at this chart here. This chart represents the percentage of three-pointer attempts of all field goal attempts in an NBA game, organized by year. So what you're looking at is a trend line over about 20 years. At the very left, that's in the season of 2003. NBA players, of all the field goal attempts they took in a game, less than 20% were from behind the three-point line. Fast forward 20 years, look at where the blue line ends. More than double that. More than 50% of the shots are attempted from behind the three-point line. The game of basketball was invented back in 1891. It's a simple game. 10 players, 1 ball, 2 baskets. Why in such a short time span, 20 years compared to more than 100 years, so much change in the way the game is played? Okay. If you look at the blue line more closely, do you see an inflection point somewhere in the middle? right here, around 2011, 2012, right? The line was plateauing, then it took off, no sort of end in sight. So what happened around that time? Steph Curry, when he was drafted into NBA, anyone? 2 years prior to that, I think, 2009. So he was already in the game, in the league for a while now.
European players stretch 4 and stretch 5.
Okay, international players bring their style to the game, right? But European players have been playing basketball for long before this.
The inflection point is when Dallas won the title with Dirk Nowitzki. So.
Okay, that's one theory. Okay, let me tell you my theory. My theory is this. In 2013, all the arenas in NBA got the high-def camera installed. They can keep track of every single move on the court. And one of the products is a heat map underneath it, where you know every shot's attempted during the whole season, right? So you have that data. You know where shots were attempted. And you also know whether a shot was good or not. So when you have that data, you can easily calculate the success rate from each single spot on the court. If you do that simple math, you get a map like this. If you look at right underneath the basket, you have a hit rate north of 60%. You want to take your dunks. And as you can imagine, as you go further from the basket, the success rates sort of decreases, right? And if you multiply the value you get from each made shot by the success rate, you get the expected return for each shot attempted. The key thing with the three-point line is, once you cross it, you go from 2 to 3. If you do that, you get a map like this. So the value represents essentially the expected return for each shot attempted. Underneath the basket, each shot is worth 1.2 points. The second highest, corner threes, and right on top of the key. Right? Where do you have the lowest expected return? Those mid-range jumpers. Don't shoot those unless you're Chris Paul. Right? So when you see this kind of data, it takes guesswork out of it. Players, coaches may know intuitively corner threes are good, it's worth a lot, but when you see this kind of data, you change your behavior, you change your strategy. And not only that, you do so with conviction. That gives us this fundamental shift in how we approach a simple game of basketball. Right? So my theory is the advent of this kind of data plus some simple analysis that changed mindset, took the guesswork out of strategies that led to a new way of playing, and players and the coaches are committed to it with conviction. Right? So I teach marketing analytics. To me, marketing analytics is doing what the NBA players, coaches are doing. When you get the new kind of data and do the right analysis, that can take a lot of guesswork out of the way we make decisions. So in marketing, we make strategic decisions, tactical decisions. But if we have a good source of data and crunch the number in the right way, I like to say we go from marketing by hoping to marketing by knowing. Right? So in the next 30 minutes or so, I'm going to show you one type of data that I think can revolutionize or can change the way we make a lot of business decisions, not just in marketing. Okay? To take the guesswork out of it, that is search data, using search data. Okay? Before I dive into use cases, examples of the power of search data, let me do a pop quiz, which I do at the beginning of my class when I talk about this topic. That is, what day of the week are people most interested in Hanover-related information? So, Monday, I hear Monday, Sunday, Saturday. Anyone for Friday? So when I ask this question to my students, I typically get answers that cover every single day of the week. Then my next question to them is, how do you find out who's right? Some data, let's collect data. What about survey data? Asking people. Okay, that takes time, can be expensive, people may not tell you the truth. What about the social media posts? Also takes some time, I have to write a code, scrape the data, and also people may not tell us the truth, right? So, what about the search data? That's when I pull up my computer and go to Google Trends. Just Google Trends. That is a free platform Google makes available to advertisers for them to do keyword research, to see search trends for all kinds of keywords. Here, I entered the word Hanover into the query box. And I set the time range to December 1st, 2023 through January 31st, 2024. So a 2 months window. When I do that, I get a daily search index. So Google Trends gives you an index. The maximum point is normalized to 100, and every other point on the line is proportionate to that maximum point. So you can see that search peaked on January 1st, 2024. Not surprising. And also you see a 7-day cycle that repeats itself like clockwork. It peaks every Sunday. So I guess the answer to my question is Sunday. Except for January 1st, right? It's a Monday. And that's understandable. And this data is also available by region, by state, by market, by city. So if you look at the heat map underneath it, the darker the blue, the higher the per capita search that contains Hanover. Where do we see the darkest blue on the map? Las Vegas, Nevada. Right? Intuitive? Makes sense? Okay. I don't know, Delaware, yeah, Delaware is somehow. Yeah. But it's close, 2 and 3. It's just Nevada is way out there, right? So we learned a little bit about drinking behavior. If you want to push this a little bit further, you can try this. I put vodka alongside Hanover. And the red line represents daily search interest for vodka. Do you see a parallel between the two lines? It also has a 7-day cycle. It just that peaks every Saturday. Right? So I don't think you need much convincing to see a causal linkage between these two lines. Okay? So in a couple of minutes, we learned a little bit about drinking behavior in the US. Now let's say we want to learn a little bit about gifting behavior in the US. In particular, the gender differences between man and woman, who puts in more efforts when it comes to gifting ideas. I see some hypotheses, theories, right? How do we find out? Right? So we need to be a little bit creative. What kind of keywords people would search when they try to find a gifting idea for their significant other? What would you do?
Gift for a boyfriend.
Bingo. Let's try that. Gift for boyfriend and gift for girlfriend. Let's try that to compare, right? So remember, the blue line is for gift for boyfriend, presumably generated by women looking for gifting ideas for their significant others. And the red line, presumably generated by the man doing the same. So what do you see? You see that around Valentine's Day, the blue line dominates the red line. So your theory is right. Women do put in more thoughts, more efforts in finding the perfect gift for their romantic partners. Right? And you also see a huge spike towards the end of the year. So that's around Christmas. Right? You do see that the blue line starts to rise a little bit sooner than the red line, but the red line does catch up and peak right the week before Christmas or the week of Christmas. Okay, so makes sense, intuitive. Now let's ask the next question. They get married. Now what happens? What's the gender difference in gift search behavior after marriage? How would you find that out? Bingo. Gift for husband, gift for wife. Let's try that. Remember, blue line generated by women, the red line generated by men. There's no big spike around Valentine's after marriage, but the blue line and the red line, neck to neck. Okay? So there's still a huge spike around Christmas. This time around, it's a red line. Man dominates the blue line. So you get a sense of change in power dynamics post-marriage in the US, right? It's captured there. If you look at the middle of the line, you see another spike in the red trend line. What's behind that? Mother's Day. Father's Day, no corresponding spike in the blue line. Okay? So we learned a little bit about drinking, learned a bit about gifting, right? We can do this because we search. It has become an integral part of our everyday life, from the most mundane to the cerebral, right? So in the US, each month, more than 22,000 people would type in the exact 2 words, best toothbrush. Okay? They search when they buy things. They search when they are pondering life and death issues. Every month, more than 22,000 people search those exact 6 keywords, 6 words, type those exact 6 words into the query box. What is the meaning of life? Okay? If you want to see what's on people's mind at different ages, what concerns them, you can try the trick. Type in I am X age, and Google will suggest autofill for the most commonly searched topics. Right? You can see how our concerns, our worries vary throughout the life stage. Right? So we search. We do a lot of them. Another thing with search data is it is more honest. Unlike social media posts, where you worry about social desirability, when you search, you don't worry about those things. You are more honest, right? So people did this comparison between Facebook post mentions of husband and the Google search queries containing husband, right? So search data is more honest. greater volume, more honest, more truthful, less varnished. So when you have such data, and it's freely available to you now through platforms such as Google Trends, which gives you indexed data, as I mentioned. It does not give you volume. If you want to know the exact volume, you use something called a keyword planner. It's also available to you if you are an advertiser. So they open it. Google Trends is open to the public. You just go to their website, and you have it. And you can download data and use it for free, right? They have made that available for more than 15 years now. So my research started when they first made the data available, and has been consistently available after that. Keyword Planner is more precise. It gives you the volume. It gives you exact match, not phrase match, exact match. Know the volume. You can get the data not only for the US, but for all around the world, in not only English and other language. Right? Just that in order to do that, you have to be an advertiser. But how to become an advertiser? You just need to create your own website, or find a website you want to advertise on Google for. Then just enter your credit card information. Voila, you're an advertiser, and you can access that data. So this is sort of the data sets that's being available to us now for marketers, for managers, for executives. My point is, this can be the high-def camera data on NBA courts. That can show us a lot of things we don't normally see, and allow us to make decisions with more conviction, taking a lot of guesswork out of it, because of the availability of this epic library of human intentions. So I guess my first takeaway is to recognize a data source such as this is available. If you don't take advantage of it, and your competition does, then you are disadvantaged. Okay? You can do a lot with this data. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few use cases which I think is particularly powerful when leveraging this kind of search data. My personal pet peeve when I teach marketing is we worry too much about the day-to-day decisions, pricing, advertising, and all that, but we are not investing enough time and efforts to study long-term trends. And to me, the best and most profitable thing to write in business is long-term growth trend in demand. If you're in the industry, in a category where the trend is going downward, you're swimming against the tide, that's awfully harder when you can ride a rising tide and do so early and do so with conviction, right? But that's awfully hard to do. Like Yogi Berra used to say, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. That's where I think search data can help a lot. Because of the volume, because of the long history available, that allows you to extract patterns, long-term patterns. There are a lot of search data that can be leading indicators. What we search now may manifest in real-world demand and sales months or even years down the road. I'm going to share with you a few examples like that. One thing I tell my students is, don't fall into this trap of a frog in a boiling pot of water. So when I was assistant professor, whenever I get a chance to interact with executives, I like to ask this question: what keeps you awake at night? That's my way to see what are the important research topics, ideas. Right? One time I get a chance to have dinner and sit next to a senior executive from Kroger and ask this question. I was expecting to hear something about pricing, merchandising, and all that. And he said, I was concerned about this phenomenon. His point is that when we make day-to-day decisions, we're assuming a stable environment. Today is a copy of yesterday. This week is not that much different from the previous week or the next. But the truth is, things are slowly and gradually changing around us, just like a pot of water being heated up gradually. Once we recognize that, people's tastes have changed. Category demands have shifted. And when we try to react to that, that's often too late, too costly. You want to be ahead of that, right? So to do that, you need to invest in data, in analysis, to spot trends and do so early. So that's where search data comes in very handy. Okay? So here's one example. Electric bikes. Right? We know electric vehicle has its ups and downs. Now, in the last year or so, it's sort of demand has plateaued. What about electric bikes? That's just one category. This is one exercise I do in class. Make an educated guess. How much demand for electric bikes would grow over the next 2 years? Which months does the demand peak? Why knowing answers to these questions is important? Number one, it can help you set growth targets. Right? A lot of business set growth targets. They say, I want 10% growth. That target may be very ambitious if the category is flat. Or it may not be so impressive if the category is growing 20%. Right? You can also do this for performance evaluation. Right? You want to know not only your absolute growth, but relative to category. Are you performing above the bar or below the bar? So that requires you to have a good idea of category growth, right? So that's one use of that. What about seasonality? Why knowing demand seasonality is important to a marketer? One simple application is, how do you allocate your annual budget throughout the year? When do you spend more on advertising in a particular month of the year? You want to know if that is in proportion to seasonal demands, right? So how do we do that? So this is where I would have my students open up the laptop, go to Google Trends. So first thing you need to figure out is, what are the keywords that are relevant that would capture category demand for electric bikes? Right? That's where you need to do keyword research, right? Instead of using the keyword that comes to your mind and use that only, you need to identify, you need to speak the language of the consumer. What kind of words they use when they express interest in this category, right? People can search for electric bike. What about electric bikes? Singular versus plural, right? E-bike, e-bikes, electric bicycle, electric bicycles. What are more common? What are the most relevant ones? Oftentimes the answer is there's no single keyword that captures category demand. You need to do your due diligence, identify a whole bunch of them, and there's a way to create a composite query that will string all those relevant vocabularies together to capture category demand. So once you have done your homework, you can put those composite query into the box, and you can ask for search trend data. Here we would get the data like this. Then you can click on the downward arrow, and you can download that data for free. It will be in a CSV file. You can open it up in Excel. Right? Then you can do a lot of things with it. For example, analyzing seasonality, comparing monthly search to annual average search. So for electric bike, in a few minutes, we can figure out the high demand months are in the summer months, June, July, August. Started very low in January, that's almost 40% below annual average. Then it rise up, peak in summer months, then cools down for the rest of the year. And in terms of growth trajectory, I would say it's still a growing trend. It's not slowing down, the growth is still double digit, right? So, but of course you need to do your due diligence, you need to find out what's the error rate of the forecast, and we will learn more about those in my class. But the general takeaway for the students is the data source like this is freely available to you. The analytics behind it is not that difficult, and you can gain a whole lot of insights about your category, the growth trajectory, and so on and so forth, right? So imagine you can replace this with your brand name. You want to see brand awareness, brand consideration. You can do this for your competition, right? There's nothing preventing you from doing that. So you can apply this kind of tool to a whole lot of different topics that you care about and see where the world is headed, not just in the US, but all around the world. So during COVID, I tried this technique, try to predict COVID hospitalization. So I ended up using the term COVID symptoms as my leading indicator. The blue line represents the daily search intensity for COVID symptoms in the Houston area. The orange line represents the number of new COVID hospitalizations. You can see that the blue line leads the orange line by about 1 to 2 weeks. So when you have the symptom, you suspect you got the virus, you start searching, and unfortunately, some of us could not deal with this on our own. We need to seek hospital help, care, right? And that's captured that. So in this case, it's a leading indicator, 1 to 2 weeks. Right? So once I did a project for a major mortgage lender in the US, what they want is forecasting mortgage defaults and do so at the regional level, not just the national level, but regional level. At the national level, you have all kinds of economic indicators and so on and so forth. But if you drill down to a particular state, particular city, county, local areas, that's much harder. You don't have that kind of indicators. The data is not reliable, sparse, right? So when they saw my work on quantitative trend spotting using search data, they reached out and said, can you do something like this with search data? So I did my research. I identified a combination of 18 keywords that turned out to be leading indicators. So I can share with you 2 of them. One is hardship letter. Another is foreclosure help. It turned out those search terms leads actual defaults by 6 months. So people don't give up their homes easily. They fight tooth and nail. So when they are first under the financial stress, they would seek out all kinds of remedies. It turns out the hardship letter and foreclosure help are 2 of them. Right? And very reliably, if you see a spike in search for those terms, you can expect a spike 6 months later, mortgage defaults. So what you're looking here is the blue dots are the actual mortgage default rates. The red line is forecasts made 6 months ahead using only those 18 search indicators. Turned out to be very accurate. Because of search data is available at the local market level, you can get this market by market. Right? And the project was a hit, and they said, can you do another one? And this time, we want to know mortgage application at the regional level. Can you also find the leading indicators that can forecast mortgage application? I can share with you one of them. That is zoning. Zoning, the search for zoning leads mortgage application by about 3 months. Make sense? At the start of the home buying journey, Americans are worried about school districts. Which school does this property, is this property zoned to? They search for zoning. And 3 months later, they find their home, they're about to apply for mortgage. That turned out to be another sort of leading indicator that gives you a cheat sheet. So you can, ahead of time, you can forecast much better what the real world demand is. So these are just a few examples out there, right? If you can find those, then you're ahead of the game, right? You can predict better than your competition, right? And if you want to have an even longer leading indicator of mortgage defaults, try housing bubble. So the red line is the actual mortgage default rates. The blue line is search for housing bubble. The peak that was the last Great Recession, the subprime mortgage crisis, and you can see the lead time is about 4 years. Okay, so next time, if you want to get a sense whether a mortgage default crisis is imminent, try monitor search for housing bubble. Right? That was 2005, 2004, and this is 2020. So I would say probably there won't be a major mortgage default crisis that's in the near time horizon. Just looking at this. Okay, so this is another example there. So another takeaway, or something I would suggest you all consider doing, is create your own dashboard to monitor category search trends. So I have advised a lot of companies to do this, right? Identify the most relevant topics to you, either a demand for established product or an emerging issue in your industry. Then do your keyword research. Essentially, speak the language of the buyer. What kind of terms they use when they are interested, when they are concerned about a topic. Then create your own search train. Collect your own search data and have somebody to do this on a continuous basis. Hire an intern, have an analyst, create a Tableau, Power BI dashboard, so that you can see the slow and the gradual change in your industry. And don't be the frog in the boiling pot of water, recognizing major shifts too late. You do this for your products, for your brands, for your competition brands. For example, one very good use of this data is to create something I call share of brand search. Collecting market share data is tough. It takes time and money, and the data is delayed. But if you want to know share of mind among your potential buyers, one quick thing you can do is share of brand search. Right? Is it trending up or trending down? Are you winning the battle in getting on top of the mind of your buyers? Right? Do that. Create such a dashboard. So those examples are very macro in terms of trend, in terms of long-term development. Search data can also be used for very micro decisions. So in Google Trends, for example, if you narrow the time range to a 3-hour window, you get a minute-by-minute search index. So what you're looking at here is during the 2024 Super Bowl, the 3-hour time window, the search for 2 brands, DoorDash and Temu. And they are 2 advertisers during 2024 Super Bowl. Probably you don't need to do any research to know when they aired their ad, the exact minute they aired their ad, right? Whenever you see the spike, that's where when they aired the ad, right? So if you just look at the height of each spike, you get a sense of the relative performance of the ad creative, how that ad resonated with people. This phenomenon is so robust because of the second screen phenomenon. When we watch TV, we have our mobile phone, and if the ad caught our attention, we're interested in the product, we search for the brand name. And that typically happens within a 10-minute window after the ad. So you can use that search data to do micro decisions. Which ad creatives are the best? Right? Okay, I'm going to end my talk with one last example of the power of search data. So this is based on a consulting project I did back in 2015 for a major food manufacturer. The impetus for this project is a strategic move made by Diet Pepsi. Diet Pepsi is the flagship product of Pepsi. And over the years, the sales has been flat, actually declining. They want to find out why. So as a good marketer do, they surveyed, they did focus groups. They're asking people, why did you stop drinking diet soda? Very consistently, what they hear from people is that they are concerned about artificial sweeteners, primarily aspartame. That is the sweetener they use in Diet Pepsi. So they did the due diligence. They say, we heard what people have to say, we're going to react. They took out aspartame from their formula. They did not do that quietly. They actually made that a central selling point. At the front of the bottle, they say, now aspartame free. They're proud of their new sort of formula addressing a major concern people have told them. Right? As you can imagine, when Pepsi makes such a bold move, other food manufacturers wants to know whether they should follow suit or not. So the food manufacturer who hired me as a consultant asked these two questions. Has Pepsi made the right strategic move? What is the long-term trend in consumer interest and concern about aspartame? They don't have the time and resources to do the surveys. Even when they do, they say, we will probably find what Pepsi find. Right? That's not going to be helpful. Can you find something that's alternative, that's additional? So I say, let's do search data. Let's hear what search data has to tell us. The approach is very simple. Step one, do keyword research. What terms people search along with aspartame? That would indicate a degree of concern. Next, compile those terms, get their historical search data. Finally, do trend analysis to see where that leads us. So a very simple formula, 1, 2, 3. So we did the keyword research. We end up with thousands of keywords that contain aspartame and something else. And we categorize each search query into a type, whether that's general interest, some chemistry students studying food science type in aspartame, or it's a concern-driven search. Right? We categorize all of them. So we identified some of the leading co-search terms, like side effects, poisoning, toxicity, diabetes, headaches, and so on. So we said, if people search aspartame along with those words, that's an indication of concern. Okay. And we collect the data. Overall search, generic interest, concern-driven search. So this is the raw data. And in order to see the long-term trend better, we throw out seasonality, just extract it, throw it out. We don't really care about seasonality for this project. And we don't care about those temporal noises, sudden movements because of external events, or just temporary things. Throw it out. This is the money shot. After you're throwing out, doing all the homework, you get 3 trend lines. Overall interest, declining. Sort of neutral interest, declining. Concern-driven search, flat. The conclusion I made, Pepsi made the wrong move. Concern about aspartame is not the culprit for declining sales of diet soda. Sales is declining, concern is flat. The two don't correlate, right? So I stuck my neck out at the consultant. I said, don't follow suit. Normally you don't do that, right? You try to give yourself some wiggle room. But to me, the evidence is clear and cut, okay? Anyway, I made that, and 3 years later, I received an email from my contact with a screenshot. The rest is history. That was a very proud moment for me professionally, knowing that the research I did, the data I used, is more reliable than all the money and all the research folks at Pepsi has done. Right? They trust too much of what people say they would do. Instead, I looked at what they search. It's more reliable, more truthful, more telling. So those are some of the examples I would like to share with you. I hope after this talk you recognize there's a gold mine to be tapped if you have not leveraged that yet. Ask your analysts, ask your managers, ask your students, ask your interns, look into this data and see what you can do with it. The data is free, the analysis is not that difficult. But there are some details you need to pay attention to so that you get the best data, do the right analysis. So I wrote a published article last year basically summarizing all the learnings I have in this area. It's called Leveraging Online Search Data as a Source of Marketing Insights. So if you're interested, shoot me an email. Happy to share with you a copy. And if it's a simple book, and if you just spend some time and glancing through it, you may pick up some ideas. Okay? So with that, I'd like to conclude my talk, and thank you again for giving me this opportunity.
Everyone, we now have a 20-minute break before Dean Mills comes back. And we will start promptly at 4:30 so that we can get you out of here in time for cocktails and the reception. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's really, really interesting. I preach this all the time of like, everyone always tells you one thing that behavior doesn't follow. So I love seeing side-by-side Google and Facebook. That was awesome. Are you here in Austin full-time?
Yeah, I'm a full-time faculty.
Okay, great. I lead a marketing team here, and I want to have you come speak to them one day.
Okay.
How do you think, I mean, so thank you so much for presenting. I understand working over as CEO, so I get it. How do you think this world will change with all Gen AI, with Gen LLMs? This is like, this data is no longer there, right?
Yeah, it will have a hit on that.
So like, how do you think, even in this new world, how are we going to, like, be able to derive insights using this?
So I think it will affect some search, but not all search. Right? If you're merchandising-driven search and so on, yeah, but yeah, you need to be careful. I don't know to what extent this has changed people's search behavior, but it's something that's worth looking at.
Like, let me try to look cute.
Thanks for the talk. I really appreciate it.
So much. Hello, everyone. Could you please take your seats? We're about to get started. All right, y'all, we're getting started. Thank you for grabbing your seat. Folks are trickling in. It's time for our next speakers. I would like to welcome back Dean Lillian Mills, who will introduce and moderate our keynote interview with Blake Putra.
Thank you, Natalie. It's a delight to have you. We're going to go ahead and start. Blake and I are going to talk for about a half hour, 20 to 30 minutes. There might be time for questions. There are microphones up here, but we will land the plane on time by 5:15 for the reception. So have no fear, people will come in as we start. So I'm Dean Lillian Mills, and I'm joined by Blake Putra, who is a technology entrepreneur and investor. He's the managing partner at Big Enrichment, a Texas-based venture studio that both founds and funds startups. And before his early stage investing, Blake was the founder and CEO of Phoenix, a software company with a suite of enterprise data management products, which was acquired by Salesforce less than 3 years after it grew revenue to over $35 million. I know. And post-acquisition, he joined Salesforce as an SVP of product management, helping grow the Salesforce platform. He's my proud graduate from MS Technology Commercialization in 2019. And wow, Blake. So we're going to go to the beginning. How did you get interested in entrepreneurship and start Phoenix? And what was the transformative moment that let you take that risk?
Yeah, so like most business stories, mine was born in failure. And that was, I had a small consulting company in East Texas, in a little rural town called Orange, Texas, which is the Golden Triangle. If there's anyone here from there, I'd be shocked. Oh, good, we have one. From Beaumont, Golden Triangle, yeah. So that consulting company, what we did is we did technology solutions primarily on the Salesforce ecosystem for large enterprise customers. And we had nominal success in terms of who our customers were and the projects we were doing. We had Panasonic, MasterCard, and even Netflix. But I could not grow it beyond 5 people. And to grow a services company, you've got to grow with people. Mm-hmm. So finding resources in a small town was very difficult to do. All of our work was remote. We got good at doing the hard things, but then training someone to do the hard stuff was even more difficult. So it constantly felt like an uphill battle, and I wanted to find out what else was out there. Where can I get more? Because from me, especially from a delivery standpoint, I was tapped out on hours. There was plenty of work. There just wasn't people to fill it. And so when I looked into moving into a product-based company, that's when I discovered MSTC here at UT. And for those of you that haven't been to that program, it's a little bit different format. It's every other weekend. It's on-site if you want it to be, or it could be remote. So honestly, I was drawn by the remote piece because that's what I'm used to doing. And I have a family at the time when we lived in Orange, family back home. But coming to the MSTC program, where I really got the value was being here in person, mm-hmm. and learning what all that program had to offer was pretty instrumental in me taking that next step.
Well, thanks. In the early days of Phoenix, what were some of the toughest challenges you faced, and what was the solution to them? And when you had moments of doubt, how did you keep going?
So the moments of doubt were all the time, right? I think
Sounds like my PhD program.
I think we've all been there. But what was different about Phoenix was we had, through working with one of my customers, which was Netflix, I had solved a problem for them at a project level. And I was at that time seeking product ideas. And being in the MSTC program, They had a framework called Quick Start where you could work through that framework and really determine if your product had validation, if it had a product market fit. And I had a couple ideas of things I would do, but this one that I was working for and did for Netflix, it ended up being the one that I did end up building. And working through that process of that validation, I came up with the technology, and Salesforce looked at acquiring it back then, but there were external factors that stopped them from acquiring it pre-revenue. Well, that ended up being the biggest blessing because you never want to sell a business pre-revenue. You may be exciting, you get to say you have an exit, but your multiple on zero is usually pretty small. They did not acquire the technology at that point. They came back and said, we'd be interested in doing a different kind of agreement with you where it's a royalty agreement. And I said, that sounds great. Because at this point, they weren't going to acquire me. I said, that sounds great. What does that mean? And they described it as they'll handle the sales and marketing, but we handle the product, the development. I still owned all of the IP. And if, you don't have to use Salesforce to know that they're one of the best sales and marketing machines in software. And so that felt like a dream come true, and it turned out to be.
So tell me more about the nature of the product, because we've got a wide audience here that might not actually know.
That's a good question, because the first product was called Data Mask. And the reason why Salesforce didn't have a product for this, because the niche itself didn't exist. And that was, we needed to anonymize or pseudonymize data at a high volume for privacy reasons and security reasons. So these big systems like Salesforce, you typically get a sandbox or a secondary system, and that's where your consultants are working, your developers are working in. You don't want your actual real data in those systems. And so we took that data and we would convert it to either like gibberish in some cases, if that's what they needed, or we'd actually convert it to real names, just not the actual names, or real phone numbers, just not the actual phone numbers. And so the data still had its integrity and value, but it didn't have its sensitivity at that
Right.
phase.
Okay. Yeah. So what helped you finally get the growth moving and create positive revenue? Was it that Salesforce was driving the revenue, or were you measuring revenue by the royalties you were getting?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a cheat code here. If you can have Salesforce sell for you, you're going to sell no matter what you have. They can sell this to an enterprise for $1 million a year. But you have to deliver, and that's the gift and the curse. Like immediately we had a customer base and a sales team of 20,000 plus people going out and pushing our product. But if you had a product that wasn't going to deliver, you're dead in the water. It's over, and you could get exposed real quick. So having them be the sales and marketing tool, the onus was on us to deliver the product and deliver it at scale. And scale at that level is a whole nother level. It's some people will say it's a problem you want to have, and I'll tell you it's really just a problem. You better hope you can solve it. And so having them meant that in our agreement, we kind of ate what we killed, right? Whatever they sold, that's what we got paid on. So there's very low risk for them other than customer trust, which is extremely important. It's one of their core values. But for us, as long as we could deliver, we didn't have to raise a single dollar of external funding throughout this process. So I didn't have to give up equity involuntarily at any point. And obviously that came into play in two ways. One, obviously the exit, but the other was, and this is something that matters to me now, that's why I don't seek external funding for any of the things I do now, is we're able to do distributions throughout the whole process, which, nothing against VC money or external, you got to do what you got to do to get by, but in that instance, I was able to pay myself throughout, so I wasn't really struggling after the first 6 to 8 months once money was coming in.
So part of why I love doing these is I get to ask questions I need to know the answer to. So for about 20 years, I was a consultant to the IRS, and I had their actual data. So I knew company names, EIDs, the whole thing. But there's a lot of academic research that could be done more at a better scale if they had better anonymized data. Were any of your customers ever the entire federal government or the state of Texas?
Yes.
To anonymize, say, comptroller of Texas data so that some consultant could help with it?
So by the end of the exit, we had over 2,000 customers, and Fortune 100, Fortune 500, it was overwhelming majority of those. We had some neat ones too, like NASA and some of the others. And the goal of our product was to give you value in your data without the sensitivity. And so in that case, especially now with the technology that's out there now with machine learning and AI, you didn't need to know that it's my IRS data.
Right.
But you could still get value in certain data points
About the
me.
attributes
That's right.
of someone like you.
That's right.
Yet without knowing your name.
That's right.
So your customer base had expanded beyond the commercial to the governmental.
That's right. And not only that, it didn't box us into any one industry.
Right.
Everyone has this problem. Everyone needed this solution.
And how about cross-border? So were you making inroads into foreign companies, foreign countries, foreign governments?
We did. So after we launched the first product was December of 2019. That was Data Mass. That's the one I've just described. We all know what happens 3 months later. So in those first 30 days, right out of the jump, we did $6 million in sales in the first 30 days. And so we knew we were onto something. Again, this was an unproven market.
Right.
And we were pretending to be a very proven team at this point. And then
A little imposter syndrome.
that's right.
Yeah.
You feel
but
it.
you
That's
fake
those,
it.
That's
you
right.
fake it till you,
That's those moments of doubt that you feel is in some ways we wanted to pinch ourselves, but then we had this little thing that only affected us. It was called the pandemic. I'm kidding. We all went through that. But for us, that became an additional opportunity because while we were a startup, we had so much uncertainty over what's going to happen, just like everyone. So did Salesforce as a corporation. So they started to freeze hiring at that point for the most part. And so outsourced innovation for them became an even higher priority.
right.
And they approached us to build a second product, said, would you be interested? I said, yes, before I ever heard what the product was. Because we operated in fear at that time, and that was a product called Privacy Center, and most of those customers were international because of GDPR and other regulations that are prevalent overseas and probably soon to be here, potentially.
Yeah. So tell us about the Salesforce acquisition. How did you make sure, how do you do that well? So what went well? What, if you had a do-over, would you structure it a little differently?
So in our case, it's a little bit different, and it's because we had a prearranged agreement.
Yes.
So we knew a lot of the broad strokes of the acquisition were already predetermined. We knew what the multiple was going to be. We knew somewhat of the number. So we didn't really have to battle on that. But what that allowed for me to do, I was most concerned about my employees at that point.
And how many did you have at that point?
When we first launched the product, we had 3.
Yep.
When we sold, we were around 18.
Okay, so still scrappy.
Very.
Right.
Very.
And were you still in Orange, Texas? Or
I
had
was,
you moved here by
I'd
then?
moved to Houston
Okay.
during the pandemic, but that was largely, it had very little to do with the business and more to do with my kids. So at that time, our biggest competitor for what we were doing had raised over $500 million. They had over 500 employees. So when you think about relative scale
Right.
there, Scrappy was our middle name. That's what we did.
Yeah. So you do the sale, but they hire you as an SVP because they don't want to lose your talent and knowledge about the business. It's one of the things, before I became dean, I was a full professor doing research. It's a little like being an entrepreneur. You get to call your own shots. And then I become dean, which is awesome. 2/3 of the time I'm a divisional CEO, and about 1/3 of the time I'm a middle manager and I've got a boss. So how did you adapt to having a boss?
It was shell shock for me,
Yes.
for sure. It went
I'm
from
relating.
Yeah, for sure. It went from every day I felt like I had a mission to having meetings about meetings about meetings. And so I had to adapt, but it's not because I'm smarter than them or because I know how to run their business better. It's at that size, things change, and they do what they do for a reason. I did feel slightly redundant, but as a hustler in nature, I wanted to find a fit and wanted to find where I could add value. And there were places where at a big company like that, if you offer your help, they'll gladly take it. And so I just kind of floated around, finding things that were interesting and seeing where I could add value. I am a developer by trade, though. That's what I got started with, was being a programmer, and they quickly shut that down. So didn't get to do that.
Well, probably at the salary and position you were at, they couldn't afford you to have you at the keyboard coding things. So you've both led a startup, and then how big was your team at Salesforce?
Once we got to Salesforce, so my biggest concern about the acquisition, with it having been a lot of the financial pieces predetermined, was what happens to my employees.
Right.
And so that was one place I still had room to negotiate. And so working on them getting leveled up, both salary options going from startup to enterprise software.
So they all became Salesforce employees also?
Every one of them.
Great.
That was one of the deals that I could have blocked it over and made sure that everyone had a spot. And so they did get a spot, but it spread us out a little bit.
Sure.
And so in terms of the size, we were what's called trusted services, and I would have to say we were probably 50 to 100.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So what did you learn about leadership, both with your scrappy team of 15 to 18, and now leading 50 people inside a firm with tens and hundreds, huge firm at Salesforce?
Yeah, so if you could look anything up after this talk, it would be to look at the difference between founder mode and manager mode. And this was topical because Paul Graham at Y Combinator brought this up, and he was illustrating Brian Chesky at Airbnb was saying how once he received all this funding and he's got traction, he's building a business, but still early stage, these folks that are advising him are telling him, you need to hire smart people and let them do what they do. And that's conventional wisdom. And I'm not saying it's wrong, and Paul doesn't say it's necessarily wrong. But what Brian found is that didn't work for him at Airbnb, and this really resonated with me. It did not work for me either. I wanted to do that. Not in a goal to be more passive, but really to let people be empowered and take ownership. Because by nature, I'm not territorial when it comes to the work. But Brian found that to be just disastrous for Airbnb, and he went back into what he now calls founder mode. And now he has some of the highest free cash flow in Silicon Valley. So it altered his trajectory, and I've seen that happen as well. If I step away from one piece of the business, I'm not the great savior at our companies. It's not like that, but I like to be available. I like to have those conversations, open communication amongst the group, try not to make assumptions about what their perspective is, because you may have a vision and you may turn that into a mission, but now you're beholden to those people carrying it out. What's their interpretation of that? And you've got to make sure it really connects with what your original vision and mission is, because you're the one leading it.
Okay, so you were at Salesforce, and now you're focused on early stage investing at Big Enrichment. How did all that prior experience help you mentor and support startups today?
Yeah, so what having been through
And
it,
you still seem so young, Blake, so
you.
it's not like,
Thank you.
you know,
Yeah.
this has been a lot of rapid progression since 2019. Yeah.
The acquisition was 2 years ago. I tried being retired, and I lasted about 2 months on that. It was either going to become a pilot or play golf. I wasn't good at golf, and piloting didn't mean I was going to make it home by dinner. You know, a bad day
Right.
piloting. So I truly love what I do now. And in terms of the big enrichment, the venture studio I have now, we do fund some investments, but we primarily focus on building our own portfolio because Phoenix at the end of the acquisition was actually 5 products. And each one of those products could have been their own standalone company, and the worth would have been much larger if it weren't for the arrangement we had in place. So now with the Venture Studio Big Enrichment, I'm able to do that and able to try and create a bit of a system where it's wash, rinse, repeat on building new products and new companies. But we still very much focus on product market fit. If you're not solving a problem that people will pay for, so you either got to save them time or save them money,
Yep.
then you're likely doing something that's just cool. And so all the people that, you know, when you talk about mentoring, if you come to pitch an idea to me and you say, wouldn't it be cool if, I kind of, it's earmuffs from then on because people don't pay for cool. I mean, consumers do. That's not the space I'm in. But if you solve a problem, people will seek you out. You can have product-led growth, and that's pretty important in this era we're in.
Can you talk about one that you're nurturing that you're excited about that isn't so skunkworks secret you can't discuss it?
Sure. We have 2 that we're working on right now, but the one that is out and we're having meetings. We met with Harvard, we met with MIT, and we're not even really a higher ed product necessarily, but we created a platform called Connect. We're real clever though. It's not spelled Connect. It's spelled COENNECT, and that's because it's a center of excellence product. So typically these enterprises will have a center of excellence team over a certain technology, but they don't have a platform that they can use for automation and monitoring on that technology. And that's what we're doing with Connect. And surprise, surprise, we're doing it on Salesforce.
Right.
And so we're sticking to our domain and staying with what we know. And we're talking to a company that rhymes with Salesforce about they're trying to acquire it right now. But y'all heard what I said about pre-revenue. So,
Right. So you're waiting to get the revenue before you sell out. Yeah, that makes sense. So do you have something as you look back over your professional life where you think that was my biggest failure, and what did you learn from it, and then what are you most proud of?
Yeah, so biggest failure is easy because that's the one, you know, those are the things that stick out in your mind the most. And to make it relative, because we've all had different experiences, my biggest failure was not saying no enough or not saying no at the right time. So you're going to get a lot of pressure as you're going and trying to achieve something. And some of those voices have a lot of influence on you. And in our case, we were asked to launch a product that wasn't ready. And I was trusting in the person in the chain of who I was saying to, look, it's not ready. It's not a good idea. Like, it's disappointing, but let's don't disappoint the customer by actually launching. And that didn't get passed up properly for selfish reasons. And I didn't dig in deep enough and really stop it. I didn't find out till later that the things I was saying wasn't being said, but I should have assumed that or at least picked up on that, and I didn't. And so looking back at that, I think it's important to have a voice, regardless of what you're doing. Stay true to what you know and believe, regardless of the groupthink around you. You won't regret it in the end, like I do in this particular situation. But in terms of accomplishments, really proud of how we did so much with so little. And still trying to carry that into what I'm doing now when obviously things have changed. You know, I could probably make some things easier on myself, but when you go through the struggle, that's when you really grow. And when you get out of your comfort zone, that's when you really grow. And so we naturally don't take ourselves out of the comfort zone. We don't push ourselves enough. We want to do the easy thing. We want to do the thing that we know and can see. And so we did a lot of uncomfortable things that turned into, the story that got me up here today.
So how big's your team now, and are any of them the ones that migrated to Salesforce, and did they quit Salesforce and join you in this venture?
So full disclosure, I have a non-solicit agreement that's in place until April of next year. So
Okay.
I do have one that didn't feel like corporate life was for her. She was what you could call my chief of staff on the previous company.
Yep.
She took time off from Salesforce, had another child, has spent all the time growing with that, which has been a great experience, and then came back and said, I still want to enter the workforce. And so she's with me now. And then I've had multiple teammates come back and say they want to, but they still have a good situation where they are.
Sure.
But I love hearing that, because that means I was doing something right that they still wanted to be with.
So how many people have you got now?
We're a team of 10 at
10.
this point.
Okay, so scrappy.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, 3 times the size of what I started last
That's
time.
right.
So
okay, growth.
We're
Big
borderline
growth.
enterprise at this point. So.
So talk a little more to this audience. I see a room, not all of whom are going to know about the MS in technology commercialization. So how did that help you get the right mindset? Are there particular skills that you found you used regularly over the last 5 years?
Yeah, so you've heard me mention product market fit, because that's, to me, that's the key to revenue eventually. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes in between an idea and taking it to market, but if you don't have something that people will pay for, then you're really wasting your time, or it's a hobby, which is fine too. But MSTC really harped on product market fit, and they had this quick start program, this quick start guide idea framework where, speaking of comfort zone, they'd ask you to contact 100 people that you didn't know, not your mom, not your brother or sister, to tell you how beautiful your idea was. You needed to contact, basically cold call people within the industry you plan to sell to and say, here's my idea. Is this something you'd pay for? Is this of value to you? And getting that early validation can save you a lot of headache and money as you go through your process, because if you don't cut it early or pivot early or make adjustments early, it's just going to be pain later. And so them pushing that idea was important, because we all get intoxicated with our idea early on, and just really, you can sell it to yourself over and over, and it gets exciting. It seems fun, but fun won't last in the long haul. You've got to really have something there.
Did you find yourself starting those conversations more with, here's a business problem I think I can solve for you? I mean, is that the way you start the conversation, to keep you from saying, I've got something really cool that you should look at?
Yeah. You really want to quantify it. That's the easiest way they can look at it and understand it. So a lot of times we get wrapped up in how we're going to solve the problem. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in the outcome or the business
How
use
many
case.
hours of staff work
Right.
it's going to solve, how much money it's going to save.
That's right. If I could do this for you, how much time would this save you? Or how much money would this save you? And also, how much easier would your job be? Or how much more productive would you be if I could do this for you so that you could focus on X, Y, or Z? So if you can take out the 80% grunt work and leave them with that 20 that they dream about, then you're going to make a lot of money.
So Blake, how old are your kids now?
I have 3 kids, 12, 10, and 5. I have 2 older, the older 2 are knuckleheads, and then I got a baby girl that's 5 that runs us all.
So I'm just interested in what of this you see in your kids, because I've got 2 sons, and the older one at age 15 read a book about how to sell anything to anybody and quit slamming doors and started negotiating. And it was better in some ways and much worse in other ways. But it was interesting watching him become a salesman. How do you see this? You know, they come to you with some proposition and you go, well, that's not, you know, you watching 3 more hours of Blue's Clues isn't solving a problem for me. Unless they say, Dad, you can watch the Longhorn game and I will quietly sit over here and watch Blue's Clues. Are they putting this on you?
So I normally have them at events like this because I want them to see me in a different light. Of course, I'm just dad to them, obviously, but we do have a rule in our household where if you want to have fun, you got to take care of your business. And
Okay.
you can't have one without the other. And so in terms of like wealth or them having somewhat of a silver spoon, they have no idea. They have no clue.
That's good.
I want to create that hustle in them. I was hungry, very, very hungry. And I think that created a very different outcome than friends that I had that came from wealth or money, if you want to call it. And even now, some of my biggest cheerleaders were those same people that I grew up with that have not been able to get outside of their own family shadow and do their own thing. So for my kids, I want them to eclipse me and do it early. And whatever that pursuit is, doesn't matter to me. My oldest son thinks I'm a nerd. So he's made it clear he does not want to be a programmer because that's kind of nerdy to him.
Okay, well, let's close with a big question and then we can take 3 audience questions. And if you think you have a question, walk your way up to the microphones as Blake and I do this last one. You're always thinking about, with big enrichment, big technologies. What trends are you excited about and what do you think will be important for the next generation of entrepreneurs? And then we'll take this guy's question.
Okay. So this wouldn't be a business conference if I didn't say the words artificial intelligence.
Yes.
So now, officially, this is real, a real conference. But I am excited about that.
Me too.
I wasn't bullish on crypto or blockchain, not to say those things aren't important, but AI does solve a lot of problems. And I think we're at the tip of the iceberg of what it can do. I think it's as big as the internet itself. And so it's interesting to see where it can go. And, you know, when you're looking for ideas, I mean, that's what we do a lot. And we have to go through our own little criteria of how we validate something and how we're going to consider something to go to market. You can look at old ideas, too, and look at how you could employ AI in that space. I mean, taxis have been around forever, and then Uber came out and just changed the way you got in a car.
Right.
There's many.
Have you heard that Waymo is now partnering with Uber?
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about that.
I was in San Francisco last week, and I saw more cars without drivers than I probably saw cars with drivers.
Yeah.
And we watched while we waited on an Uber, which they just disrupted taxi services. While we waited on Uber, we counted about 12 Waymo cars drive past us. Not to us, because we didn't order them, but they were available and they were driving around, dropping people.
Yeah. Okay, let's take this question.
So sorry. Blake, congrats.
Thank you.
It's not a question, but Dean, you have to be careful with that IRS database. Because
Right.
if you were to take it to my classroom, randomize and change all the names and phone numbers of what that information was from, and given the database to a nerd, he would have cross-referenced it against the SEC data.
Right.
And all those names of the companies and all those phone numbers were
Right.
coming back.
Right.
And the database would be complete again. And the confidential information would be out. So be careful. You need to randomize also the numbers.
No, I know. The IRS was doing this.
So some people
10,
just
20 years
think
ago.
about just
Yeah.
how to hack stuff. And so when you said it, like, oh my God, if I were the alumni in that class, now I have the database from the IRS.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I was curious about the second product that you developed because Salesforce wanted it. Was that done under contract? And if so, it sounded like they let you keep the IP and they later bought it back from you. So you must be a master negotiator.
No, but you're not a master negotiator. I appreciate that. But you're exactly right. Intuitively, you picked it up there. What the option was, it was, I think for them, it was just a pure, we either have it or we don't at that time. And so either we built it or they didn't bring it to market. And we were already seeing success for them where they could sell our product. They didn't have to put up the resources to build it. They didn't have to take the risk on whether it would sell or not. Incidentally, the first product we had, our first customer was Google. The second product, our first customer was Facebook. So I'm thankful that they chose to go outside of their typical path on that. I don't know that they are as open to doing these kind of things anymore, because by the end of it, we had a lot of ARR and it was becoming a bit of a problem financially. But I did each product all the way through 5. I went back and we renegotiated, and to the point where the last time I was told, that's it, no more. So that's fine.
Good job.
Yeah,
good job.
we're
Good job. Okay, this will be our last question, and then we're going to get to the reception early.
Thank you, Blake, so much for the talk. I know your company now focuses mostly on SaaS, and we talked a little bit about AI. I heard SaaS is probably most prime for disruption by AI, specifically around agents or just being able to quickly replicate a lot of current apps that took a large team to build. Where are you all seeing as the biggest changes coming to SaaS, and do you all think that's through AI agents?
Yeah, so I don't know that it's so much that AI will, it could, I'm certainly no Oracle, but I don't know that so much AI will disrupt SaaS as much as people are exhausted with paying subscriptions and maybe not getting full value over time, and it's just this amount that they're constantly paying. It becomes almost a constant, but what we are seeing is a shift to consumption-based pricing. So think in terms of like AWS. You could maybe call them a SaaS, because once you use AWS, you're not leaving them unless it's a major change to go to GCP or one or few other alternatives, but you're going to continue paying them more and more. But you feel better about it because you're only paying them for what you're using. And so I think the SaaS model may change from just this set fee over time to you're still a set customer, but you're only paying for what you're using and maybe the amount that you're using it.
Okay. Well, good job, team. I see people in this audience that were here when I gave a welcome 3 hours ago. So I think every moment of the afternoon was well attended, enthusiastically attended, and I appreciate that. Please help me thank Blake Putro, and we'll adjourn. Or do we have something else? We have one more session. I am in so much trouble for saying it was the reception.
Thank you, Lil and Blake. That was an amazing conversation. What an impressive story. And next, this is what's standing between you and the reception, but it's really important. Ellen Bartkowiak is the Assistant Director of Alumni Career Management at McCombs School of Business and a highly accomplished career development expert. She's got extensive experience guiding professionals at all stages with specializations in personalized coaching, workshops, and tailored resources. She holds certifications in Design Your Life, Clifton Strengths Finders, and VIA Character Strengths. I'll let her go into the rest of her bio, but really excited to welcome her here today. And she's going to talk about From Connections to Careers, Your Alumni Advantage. Please help me welcome Ellen.
Hi, everyone. Well, this will be better than the reception. I mean, right? This is what you came for. We're going to put it all together, and we're talking about a little bit of networking. Now that you are alumni, this is the best part. You get to put everything together. So today we're going to do 3 things. We're going to enhance your career edge. You've already got a step above your competition just by being here. How many of you have been here since the beginning of the conference? Yes, look. And how many of you have been here since 8:30 for the MBA Advisory Board? Yeah, yeah. They should be doing push-ups right now. They're all fired up and ready to go. So we're going to do enhancing a little bit more about you and your career. We're going to build on some networking skills, and you're going to learn about alumni career management. So Dean Mills talked about that you can have access to coaches. Yes, as an alum, you now get career management for life. There's one, yeah. Career management for life. So wherever you go, if you're making a career change, if you're pivoting, if you're just like, you know what, I need to talk to somebody so that I don't burn out my significant other. This is your time. You have access to resources and webinars and events, things like this, and career coaches. So we launched Alumni Career Management in the summer of 2021. So as you see those e-newsletters come out, read those, because we're promoting the things that we are doing, different events, and it is a virtual place to go. We are a global organization, and so whether you go to Europe and somebody starts networking with you and then they start to offer you a job opportunity and you need to quickly talk to a coach, you can get online. All of our sessions are virtual via Zoom. So our team is made up of our leader, Stephanie Saraboff. She is the Senior Assistant Dean. And then myself, Ellen Bartkowiak, and then all of our coaches. We have Robin Hedges, Michelle Carroll, Mushfika Jamaludin, Mushfika, and Gary Anello. So you can read their bios and see which one you click with. We understand it's just like getting a doctor. These are all certified coaches. They are an objective person who can ask you questions and help you navigate wherever you need to go. Now, if you're like, well, what do we talk about? The number one thing that alumni come to us is for a job search. And I know that's really broad, but at the base of doing a job search is your happiness. Are you burnt out? Are you satisfied? How are you measuring that? And so when you start to explore, of course, what we encourage you to do is start networking, talk with other people, start to do some data, start to gather some data and some research, just to dip before you dip your toe. And so as we're doing networking and having those conversations, people say, I don't want to network. I don't like to network. I don't like to talk with other people. Or they might have some other reason that they don't want to do networking. And so we break it down to talk about the ease of, have you ever requested somebody to help you offer a hairstylist or a dog groomer or a place to vacation, like maybe an Airbnb? The same principles happen when you're doing networking. You're going to your trusted friends and you're asking for advice, recommendations. But that key word is trust. And so all the benefits of networking, there depends on what hat you're wearing. So if you're a job seeker, you're networking for one outcome. If you're building your network, you're networking for another reason. There's all these different reasons that you would want to network. Are you trying to build your brand? Are you trying to get some feedback on your resume? Are you trying to build your personal board of directors so that you can have people who can advocate and be an ambassador for you? The main thing that we're going to talk about today is building relationships, and we're going to start by doing that right here in this room. So let's get started. I'm going to encourage you to stand up for this next, not yet, but there will be some standing up and sitting down. If you're not in the mood to do that, you can do the hook 'em sign. But please, just to get warmed up, stand up if you have a hobby that you could discuss for hours. Okay, got it, Just someone raise your hand, tell me what's your hobby. Tennis, love it. What else?
Musical theater.
Soccer, musical theater.
Meditation.
Cooking, meditation, love it. Excellent, have a seat. Go ahead.
Bravo.
Watching Bravo. Real Housewives, Below Deck.
Not Below Deck, but basically all the rest.
Okay, gotcha, good. Stand up or do the hook 'em if you have traveled outside the US within the last month. Okay, we got one, got some. Okay, shout it out. Where were you?
I've been in India, Vienna, and Germany.
Oh, wow. For work or pleasure?
Work.
Oh, wow, gotcha. Do you mind?
Vancouver.
Vancouver, beautiful. What else?
United Kingdom.
Lovely.
South of France.
South of France.
London to watch musical theater.
Oh, just keep standing. Anyone else?
China and Japan.
Say it again.
China and Japan.
Excellent, thank you. Anyone who did the hook'em, you want to shout it? Yeah.
Spain.
Spain, lovely, lovely. Great, excellent. All right, stand up or hook'em if you are a parent to a fur baby, a human baby, a plant baby, anything that you would, yep. Okay, look around. Okay, do the hook'em, is it a plant? Okay, is it a fur baby or skinless or something? Okay, gotcha. And then like a baby, like human. Okay, good. Awesome, thank you very much. Have a seat. Stand up or hook'em if you have climbed a mountain. That's dealer's choice. You get to, See, now they're, nice, gotcha. Anybody willing to share? Okay, yeah.
Mount Pacaya, Guatemala.
Oh, Mount Pacaya in Guatemala. Excellent, congrats. Anyone else? Go ahead, Ann.
So I did a figurative mountain, and I would just say, when I graduated from McCombs 1977, I was the 3rd female marketing rep in the IBM office in Dallas.
Wow, that is a mountain. Nice. I have to ask, there's like the whole crew of mountain climbers in the back corner that just did this. Like, did you recently climb and you're exhausted, or? Yeah, they were talking about it. Okay, I won't put them on the spot. Okay, stand up or hook'em if you have participated in a marathon. Notice I use the word participated. Okay, half marathon. I don't care if you handed out water at the marathon. Awesome, congratulations, that's great. Stand up or hook'em if you have been, or if you are an entrepreneur. Nice, I see the back row. Nice. Nice, applause, thanks. Yes, that's huge. Stand up or hook'em if you have made a career change or pivot. Nice, nice. Okay, yeah, I want to talk to you. Okay. Stand up or hook'em if you have participated in homecoming before. Some, okay, got it, thank you. Stand up or hook'em if you are part of McCombs Connect.
Does it count if I just join this?
Yes, it does. You can stand up and hold it high. And there will be a QR code soon. Okay, good, so if I ask that again at the end, everyone's gonna be like, I'm on it. And then stand up or hook'em if you'd like to meet more alumni. Oh, there's some that didn't, but okay, yeah. I'm okay even if you, okay, great. Okay, so the reason that we did this, there's some neuroscience behind why we chose these questions. When we find commonalities, and when that comes when we're building relationships and when we're networking and connecting, we want to find those commonalities, because then what happens is we get a surge of dopamine. So that's what's happening right now. So look at your energy before I came up and started, and look at your energy now from when you've heard about what people are sharing. Hopefully there's a little bit of a change. And the purpose of doing this is that then we get those positive associations. Now you are lucky because you have this positive association of McCombs. You have UT Austin, that is your connection. But sometimes we feel a little threatened, a little less than when it comes to networking, if it's with strangers, if it's in a big room, if there's things happening in our job that we don't want to talk about, maybe in our personal life we don't want to talk about. And so what we're trying to do is go back and find those commonalities, and in order to get out of that threat mode, we go into curiosity. It's not about you, it's about them. Asking questions and stay curious, because that also helps us stay in that positive mindset with the dopamine and the serotonin and the oxytocin. That's what we want. So once we find these commonalities, then we can have more meaningful connections. So let's get a little deeper and have some more meaningful connections. What I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to partner up in just a second, and you're going to pick one of these to talk with your partner. And of course, I'm going to encourage you to not talk to somebody either that you came with, or maybe even someone in your class. Maybe find somebody that you haven't met yet. You can either talk about a career highlight, a career driver, something that's consistently motivated you and helped you stay motivated in your career, or a career pivot. So what you're going to do is pick a partner, and each person gets 5 minutes to talk about themselves. And you're going to say, okay, I'm going to talk about my career highlight. And you can introduce yourself, and you just get to have that conversation. If at any time you're like, oh, Ellen is forcing me to do this, and I really want to walk out of the room, stay and get curious. Just get curious. You can ask that person a couple more questions. You could say, I saw you raised your hand when you talked about a marathon. What was going on there? Okay, on your mark, get set, enjoy. Everyone, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to bring you back to your seat. If you just want to bring it back, we're going to come on back, everybody. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Hook 'em. We're coming back. All right, everyone. If you want to have a seat, let's get started. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Welcome back. Glad that we had some good conversations. All right, everyone, welcome back. All right, here are some things to think about. First of all, thank you so much for your energy, just having those conversations. I hate stopping a good conversation, but just to keep things moving. This is an opportunity for you to think about, okay, let's do a little reflection. How often do you do some reflection in your life? Whether it's journaling, meditating. I don't mean putting in earbuds and going on a Stairmaster. I mean actually doing some reflection, whether that's with another person or by yourself. So, anybody willing to share, not about the other person, but what observations, what came up for you in sharing this information? What insights? Yeah.
I'm an extrovert, so I really love talking to people. It's
So
a blessing and a curse.
As an extrovert, so should I have done like the 5 minutes so that we could be like, no. So you're an extrovert, a blessing and a curse. And what did you notice about that?
I think it's just fun to share, little tidbits about myself, and I really enjoy meeting new people, and it's very exciting to me.
That's awesome. Did you choose the career highlight?
The driver.
Oh, the driver. Gotcha. Mm-hmm. That's all right. Yeah, thank you very much. Yes?
Hi. Yeah, I think for me, it really was how amazing it was that we kept finding connections. I mean, we just met, and there was all these, exactly what you were saying about kind of these
Commonalities?
this dopamine hit of like, oh, wow, we did that. Wow, that's amazing. We just kept finding these kind of points of connection. And,
that's great.
It's amazing how that starts with genuine kind of trust that we start sharing more and more.
Well put. So when we find those commonalities, and just listen to your energy as you say it, then there's more and more trust. It's like, oh, wow, that's all the dopamine and everything firing. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'd say the last few months of work have been overwhelming and stressful, and so the opportunity to remind myself of the career driver and some of the highlights and high moments actually energized me, and pulled me out of the weeds of my day-to-day, reminded me why I do it.
That's so awesome. Good. That career driver reminds us of the good and gives you that little spark. Good. Awesome. Thanks. I'll be at the reception and the networking event, so if anybody wants to share afterwards, I would love to hear anything else that came up. Again, we put some thought into why we put those 3 prompts up for you. The highlight, the driver, and a career pivot is because the neuroscience behind that is that when we come together, there's a thing called neural bonding. And so just like in the example that the gentleman talked about, is that when we find those commonalities, it's more of those good hormones, the serotonin, the oxytocin, and the dopamine. Now, some of you might have had a conversation where you were like, is she gonna cut it pretty soon? Because I am not in the mood for this. So that's where I would pay attention to your energy. So what do you need in order to be kind of motivated to have some of these conversations? You might need to kind of clear the deck of everything in your mind. You might need to go do some jumping jacks because you have been sitting for a long time. But the other thing is, the reason that we put these in is for us to get used to telling our stories. So just like the woman said about being able to remember what are the good things. I've been kind of not having some great days lately at work, and to think about what my drivers are, and that keeps me motivated. So those stories that we're telling also build those neural pathways to connect with other people. The other thing is that people remember stories. So whether you're an extrovert and that gets you excited to tell your story, take that over as you start to build your network, as you start to reach out to people when you do a job search, or if you're mentoring other people. So the big hot ticket item right now, in order for you to stay connected and meet other people, is McCombs Connect. I know you've heard about it a couple times today, but I really want to dive into it. It is a password protected site, and so we want to make sure that only alumni and our McCombs family are in McCombs Connect. It is both students and alumni. And don't write off those students. I hear a lot of times alumni say, you know, I'm doing a job search, I don't need to talk to a student. Bip, bop, bop. There are a lot of working professionals, there are executive MBAs, there are veterans who've come back to school. Everybody has an amazing experience. And in this McCombs family, we can learn from each other, from both students and alumni. This is your one-stop shop for everything. So if you want to make a coaching appointment, this is where you would go under the resources, because all of our resources are in one central location, including our coaching scheduler. So when you log in, make sure that you pay attention to those passwords, and this is where you can sign up for events, this is where you can sign up for coaching. Every single webinar that we've ever done, whether it's Love Your Mondays, how to prevent burnout in your job, design your life, salary negotiation, interview tips, job search over the holidays, everything is in McCombs Connect, all of our previous handouts, recordings, everything. So that's where you can find all of your resources. The other thing that's great about McCombs Connect is if you just want to ask somebody a quick question, go to the community and you can search under different programs or companies and just quickly reach out to somebody. So it's kind of like the combination of LinkedIn and any other social media platform. The QR code is there, and so always feel free to go in, and you can do it now and create your profile. We're going to do one more quick connection, and this time I want you to practice doing a couple introductions. Now I know that all of you are like, Ellen, I know how to introduce myself, but I'm going to ask you to kind of step away from your comfort zone. I'm seeing some, like 2 gentlemen from the MBA class of 2014 that they didn't mix up. I totally just called them out because they were in the back and they're like, we're not doing what you told me to do. Yeah, you need to mix up. So, and if you came with somebody, if you're still sitting with them, I'm going to walk in between you. So now you get to kind of mingle, do the basics of your name, when you graduated, what year, and then go back to these. Share 1 or 2 of these. So I want you to get in groups of 4, do your introduction, and now this is the content that you're sharing. So you get about 10, 15 minutes, find some people, groups of 4, enjoy. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone, if you want to take your seats. All right, everyone, welcome back. If you want to take your seats, thanks so much. Take your seats. All right, everyone, welcome back. If you want to take your seats, thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, everyone, welcome back. Thank you for the role models in the front for taking your seats. There's no prize, but all right, everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much. As we wrap up, now you're all fired up for the networking reception. You've got questions, you know what you're saying, you know how to find the commonalities. How has this changed your preparation as to how you were going to go to the networking reception? What's different?
More energy.
More energy? You win. What does that mean? More energy, got it. What else? Reduced barrier conversations. Nice. I think that summarizes it very well. I won't go around and ask each individual person. As a reminder, you have career management for life. If you get stuck, just email me. I'm sure that someone's got my contact information somewhere. Find me on LinkedIn if you have to. We don't want any barriers for you to get access to coaching, our resources, everything that's online. We do webinars. That's how we can keep this going. We get involved with chapter events. We want to come to you. We want to do workshops webinars, events, things that you want. If there's a resource or a handout, and if you're like, Ellen, I don't see it there, we are building the plane while we are flying the plane. We just launched this baby in 2021. So that's what we are here for. So sign up for a coaching session. Here's one important thing. You get 4 free coaching sessions a year. Not a week, not in a month, a year. We assist 100,000 alumni. So think wisely about how do you want to use your coaching sessions. We have a huge initiative. Some of you have received an email already about an academic rigor survey. We would like your feedback. There is a whole committee who've worked with faculty to get your feedback on how has our academic rigor transferred into corporate America. Do you feel like the academic rigor prepared you for where you are? There's a QR code that you can take it. It was also emailed to you. There's a beautiful poster outside in case you want to just boop, boop, and then you can fill it out. It just takes 7 to 8 minutes. You might want to think about, okay, what was it like when I went through the program? What part of that am I using currently in my job? You don't have to go boop, boop when you do it. Again, my name is Ellen Bartkowiak. I'll be at the reception. It was such a pleasure working with all of you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Natalie.
Thank you, Ellen. I saw a lot of smiles when I looked around the room when people were networking. So excited to carry that forward into the reception. It's just in the atrium outside the auditorium. We will also have alumni from class years ending in 9 or 4 join us as part of their reunion celebration. We have parking validations at the registration table until 8 p.m. if you have not already received yours. And a quick reminder, tomorrow's tailgate is at 12:30 across the courtyard at the AT&T Center's Tejas room and patio. And hook 'em. Great to see you all today. Thank you for being here.